Okay, I want to welcome everybody tonight to the community development portion of the meeting for Monday, June 26, 2023. We have 4 items on the agenda tonight. The first one would be the approval of the community development meeting minutes from May 8, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell and seconded by Mr. Schneider.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 2 is the matter of the Elyria Community Partnership holding their 2023 third Thursday events in Ely Square. Parks Director Reardon.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I'm a little late on this. I think I missed the referral deadline last month by like 2 days, so I do apologize. But this did go through Park Board, and they're asking to use the square for their third Thursday events, which unfortunately the first one they did have to move inside, but the next 2 will be July 20th and August 17th.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Law Director Deary.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Director Reardon, and pursuant to the referral, this is being requested as an emergency. Yes, still the case. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of the 2023 third Thursday summer events to be held in Ely Square on June 15th, which is already passed, July 20th, and August 17th. This is an ordinance authorizing the use of Ely Square to be used for the said summer event. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schneider and seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next item is the matter of the Elyria Community Partnership holding their 2023 farmers markets in Ely Square. Parks Director Reardon.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So again, this was approved by Park Board on May 11th, asking that this be passed as an emergency also. These will be every Saturday, starting this past Saturday and going through September 9th in the square.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll read the committee. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I remember prior them have insurance.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So yeah, they would have insurance for both events, and they're kind of taking it over from the previous group.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of a seasonal downtown farmers market on Ely Square. This is an ordinance authorizing the approval for the Elyria Community Partnership to hold seasonal farmers market in Ely Square for the 2023 season. This was approved by the Parks and Recreation Board at their meeting on May 11th, 2023. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Was that an emergency?
I guess we'll find out. Should this go through as an emergency? Yes, we're indicating it as an emergency.
Okay.
Motion made by Mr. Oswald.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schneider. Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, item 4 is the matter of annexation of State of Ohio property located in Elyria Township on State Route 113. Engineer McPhillips.
Thank you, through you, Chair. We're requesting authorization to petition the county commissioners to annex 7 parcels on State Route 113 starting from West Ridge Road westward. This property is actually part of State Route 113. It is currently right-of-way, but it's currently owned by the state of Ohio. Assistant Law Director Brunig and I have been in contact with the Department of Administrative Services of the state of Ohio. They have got the okay from Ohio Department of Transportation. So we're to the point now we're going forward with preparing the petition for this annexation. The reason for the annexation is there's a new subdivision on the west side of town called Ridgewater Subdivision. And it's part of the plat that was approved through Planning Commission. The subdivision has an entrance leading out to State Route 113. And as the engineering department thought that was a good idea. One, it has access to 113. It's also direct access off of 113 for any safety services that may need to access that subdivision. Now, the subdivision currently does have an access off of Fowl Road, and this would be the secondary access. The developer reached out to the Ohio Department of Transportation to get a permit to put the entrance in, and they denied the request. The developer appealed the denial, and again, it was denied because that subdivision already has access off of Fowl Road. So they didn't want access onto 113, stating that it was too close to the intersection. Now, we did determine that that section of State Route 113 is not in a limited access area, which means access can be granted, but for this purpose, they decided not to grant the appeal because of the subdivision already having that access on Fowl Road. So we discussed it with ODOT and determined that one of the processes to get this subdivision completed is to annex the parcels that are currently owned by the state of Ohio. If the city of Elyria has jurisdiction over those parcels, then we no longer need a permit through ODOT. So thus we're requesting annexation of those parcels. Now, one parcel is necessary, but because of the location to West Ridge Road, we're requesting all the parcels between West Ridge all the way to the end. And there's another private property which we're not looking at annexing. So we're just looking at just the state-owned properties. 7 total.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oswald.
Through Mr. Chair, Ms. McGillis. Now, what does that do? Does that change the status of the homeowners that own property there, or are they taking property that isn't part of the homeowner's property on 113? Is it only a strip, like a right-of-way?
It's currently the right-of-way, and it's property owned by the state of Ohio. It's deeded to the state of Ohio. So we would not be affecting any private-owned properties.
Mr. Oswald, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And no money exchange? They just gets annexed into us?
Through you, Mr. Chair, correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I guess my concern with that is coming from that development onto 113, that's going to be a mess. If you're coming out of that development
Yes.
onto 113 trying to make a left or make a right, it's going to be a mess because that traffic is heavy over there. You have, you have Church of the Open Door when school is in session.
Mm-hmm.
You have people going to the water place. You've got all the different markets down there. I think it's going to be a mess to have that entrance and exit, particularly the exit making left. I think it's going to be a mess.
We will have traffic there.
You'll do what, please?
There will be traffic there.
There will be a lot
I
of
mean,
traffic.
yes. I mean,
There
that
will
will be one of the two entrances and exits to that subdivision.
Mr. Chair, through you, there will be accidents there for sure. For sure.
I guess I'll ask a quick question. Has there been any thought to a light there or, you know,
113.
113, you're at a light.
okay, I apologize. I'm looking at this map and thinking of something else. I'm sorry. Mrs. Davis.
Through you, Chair, which I'm not on the committee, my question is, did they do a traffic study?
Yeah.
Did they try to do a traffic study to see from the distance of the light to, I know exactly where you're talking, to that exit? What's, you know, if they trying to do a traffic study with the, Artesian Springs over there and the other, water place, have they tried? Or can we get one?
We can get one. One was not requested at the time of the plat discussion at Planning Commission. That I believe. I don't think there was one requested. I know that there was one not performed.
Mr. Schneider.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. McKillips. With the size of the development, it's probably recommended that we do have a second entrance and exit out of this place, right? With it being, it's what, 300 houses or so?
Correct.
Yeah, so we have to have it. And Fowl Road can't be the only way out.
Right, and if the last phase of the subdivision takes place, then there will be a connection to, Potomac, I believe is the name of it. So there will be a connection at that point into the existing subdivision that's there. But that's the very last phase of this subdivision.
Thank you.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So this is the state of Ohio's property, and we're just gonna take it.
Well, they're willing to give it to us.
Law Director Deary.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The state of Ohio is in agreement with the city's petition to annex. They are in agreement with this.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. through
The
you,
state of
Mr. Chair.
Ohio is in agreement with the city taking over and taking ownership of this.
Mr. Chair, through you, I did not hear her say that. I heard her say that it was denied and the appeal was denied.
What was denied, and Ms. McKillips, please correct me if I'm wrong, was the developer's request to have access. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, through you, so we're just gonna do it anyway?
That's something that's an engineering question.
Yes. I mean, basically, the state of Ohio has rules that they need to follow. And in their rules, they state that they do not permit an entrance within a quarter mile of a traffic signal on a state route. Quarter mile takes you halfway to Oberlin Road. So, the developer appealed, stating that, you know, the plat that was approved by Planning Commission, you know, showed that secondary entrance onto 113, and the engineering department agreed that that was acceptable. But when, you know, they appealed, that was also denied on the basis that there was already one entrance to that subdivision. So they weren't concerned with a second entrance, but because there was only one entrance, that was the basis for the denial.
Mr. Chair?
Go right ahead. Mrs.
Thank you,
Mitchell.
through you. So this entrance exit is gonna be between 113 and West Ridge, because there's a light right there, and Oberlin Road and West Ridge is gonna be in between that?
Well, unfortunately, I don't know how many feet it is, but it's right near the water, station.
Okay.
But what I was stating was that their quarter-mile limit takes you much farther towards Overland Road than where this is. Now, we already know that there's multiple driveways and business entrances onto that strip as it is.
Go right ahead, Mrs. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Clerk's office is going to put the map up, so hopefully that will give a better idea of the area and how far from the intersection they may be talking.
Mr. Chair, through you, I know exactly where she's talking about, and my concern is still the traffic. My concern is people making a left out of that development. There are going to be accidents. I think we have to consider the safety of the residents as well.
Thank you. Mr. Schneider?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if it becomes an issue, can it be a right in, right out only? Thank you.
Yes.
I asked her if it could be a right in, right out, if it becomes an issue with people making a left out.
Mr. Sarah?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for taking the question. So this would be similar to the Clemens and 113 intersection? I believe it's Clemens where you have, come out onto 113?
Yes. I mean, it would be
Set up pretty
a
much
street
like that?
coming out onto 113.
Thank you.
So right there is would be the entrance.
After seeing the map, are there any other questions, concerns? Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Engineer, what are your thoughts on the safety, hearing the concerns of some of our colleagues? Are you concerned that there will be accidents or that it will be a mess, per se?
If the subdivision is built out completely, then we may want to look at the developer putting in a turn lane on 113, but without having a traffic study done, I don't. That's just a guess. Other than that, the thought is, just so you're aware, the access to that subdivision with the properties that are closest to 113, the access from 113 for safety services is much faster than having those vehicles having to come down West Ridge onto Fowl and then drive all the way back up north towards 113 for those properties that are on the northern part of that subdivision. Now, that would obviously just be the safety services coming off of 113 or coming down on West Ridge. You know, depending on where they're coming from, they may be accessing that property through Fowl Road entrance anyway, but we're thinking that fire station over off of 57 would have the easiest access to this subdivision.
Go right ahead, Mr. Lippian, then Mrs. Mitchell will be after you.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to confirm a follow-up. So, as the engineer, it's your opinion that should we proceed with this today, it would increase safety service access and make more expeditious safety calls in that area. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I live over in that area and I drive down West Ridge all the time, and it looks like that road is already in. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Oswald, I saw you had your hand up earlier.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess, Chief Pernesti, maybe he can weigh in, which, he would rather have that, accessible from 113 if there was an incident, or it wouldn't matter if it was there. Does that give you quicker access to the development?
Okay. I'm sorry, what?
Well, the first due pumper would be coming from Station 3, and really, they would, if I was coming from that firehouse, I'd shoot up 113, and I would catch that drive. The rest of the city would probably go Leo Bullocks to West Ridge. So, yeah, what we call the first due, the first arriving, that area, fire protection and EMS would be faster, would shoot up 113.
Thank you.
Finance Director Pileski.
I think that road's already in.
This is getting more dicey. Mr. Oswald.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So tonight, if we pass this annexation, or if it goes to council to get passed, then could it come back to approval where you can make the point of making the developer put in a turning lane to make that happen?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so what is before the committee tonight is authorizing, or I guess the recommendation of the committee report is then to go to full council to authorize the petition for annexation by the city for this property. There would be obviously then a whole lot of conversation about the access and what that would entail. However, having the discussion about annexing this property, may really be moot if council as a whole or the city as a whole is not comfortable with having access there at all. Why go through the whole process of annexing the property? So, but what is before the committee tonight is, to answer your question, Mr. Oswald, is authorizing, or I would say giving the authorization to file the petition with the county commissioners to annex the property with the permission of the property owners, which in this case happens to be the state of Ohio.
Thank you, Law Director. I noticed that Mrs. Sawarka wanted to speak, so just please come up to the microphone.
Mary Sawarka, 119 Fresno Court. I have a couple questions relative to the 267 parcel. That's the roadway. The roadway is on that parcel. Is that correct? Yes. And what's the length of the roadway? Is it more than 750 feet right now to a dead end? But that stretch of it is more than 750 feet? It is if you, yeah. Okay, so I'm not an expert on 750 feet in fire service, but my other original question was, if you said no, what does that do to this development? So it sounds like developer already poured concrete on property that he didn't own, and Planning Commission approved something on property that the city didn't own. I agree with Mrs. Mitchell. There's no way you can come out of there and make a left. If it's a right in, right out, might work. But I was just curious as to the length of the street that's running up to 113. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, I think earlier I might have missed you. Did you have anything you wanted to weigh in on this topic?
I guess one thing I was just thinking about was in terms of this safety, and we can make sure we look at all the different mitigations that we can do in terms of trying to make it safer, whether right in, right out. But, and when I was pointing out, I was just trying to tell you, Director Pileski wanted something to say. But
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, are there any other questions, concerns from anyone on the panel? Mr. Lippian.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just want to confirm that if we vote for this today, all we're voting for is to submit the petition for annexation from the state of Ohio.
Correct.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the petition will go to the county commission.
Are there any other questions, concerns? Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I think the thing that bothers me as the state of, is that the state of Ohio already said no. Twice. And we're like, we don't care what you say, we're gonna do it anyway. How does that work?
Well, I can say, from my point of view, I'm very uncomfortable with it.
Absolutely.
I'm very uncomfortable. And, I guess that's what I'll say. Mr. Sarah.
To you, Mr. Chairman. So if we go back to, you know, the discussion we had over at the Commons, it's pretty evident that the state of Ohio is not going to be proactive about anything. They're only going to be reactive after there's a problem there. They've denied over there at Commons Reading until that next phase is done. They don't plan on taking any action.
Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, but this is their property.
Yeah.
This is the state of Ohio's property, and we're just gonna say, so, we're gonna take it anyway.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't disagree, and I'm not giving any sort of opinion on whether the petition should happen or not. I'm just saying that the state of Ohio has agreed to this annexation. So I just want to make that clear. I don't know what their motivation is or isn't. I'm just saying that so this, yes, they would be ceding this property to the city of Elyria should this be a successful petition, but they are in agreement to giving up the property.
Okay. Mr. Lippian.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Question. So it's a petition to annex this from the state of Ohio. Who is the ultimate decision-making authority on whether the petition gets approved or denied?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the decision-making authority is the Board of County Commissioners. However, based upon the fact that both parties, I'll call them the annexer or would-be annexer and the would-be annexee, meaning this state of Ohio and the city of Elyria, the parties involved are both in agreement on the state of Ohio giving up the parcels and the city of Elyria obtaining the parcels. Ohio Revised Code, Section 709.16 is pretty specific. There are very limited reasons that the county commissioners could deny the petition.
Mr. Lippian.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, and forgive me, Law Director, some of what you said I didn't quite capture. I was distracted by some conversation between colleagues. But we really need to focus in on this because I want to understand and make clear that we're making a petition. It's not a land grab. It's a request that can ultimately be denied. So I want to make sure that we understand the word petition is similar to the word request in that it's not a demand, it's not a purloining of land. It is done with consent of parties concerned. So I want to make sure we're correctly framing this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, while it is true that yes, it is, the legal term is a petition in this type of situation because both parties are in agreement, that being the current owner and the would-be owner, there are very limited reasons that the Board of County Commissioners could deny the request. So, therefore, yes, it is a request. It is in terms of a petition, but the governing body, if you will, has very limited reasons, very limited discretion in denying it.
Mr. Lippian?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Out of curiosity, what would those reasons and discretion be for denial, just so we understand the stakes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Lippian, I will pull up the revised code provisions, and I will be able to give them to you momentarily.
I guess, well, Law Director Deary, okay. Mayor Whitfield.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. I just got a couple clarifying questions for Engineer McKillips. And I'm just trying to read between the lines on some of this stuff. With the Ohio Department of Transportation denying the original request, is it possible, is it, I don't know if you can even speak to this, the right speculation that maybe they denied it because they didn't think this was a safe access point into 113? And that's why they're saying, well, if you all are willing to take on that risk as a city, you take it, but we're not comfortable with that?
The reason why they denied it is because it doesn't meet their criteria, which is the distance away from the intersection, which as per their regulation, it has to be 1/4 of a mile away from the intersection.
So kind of, yes, that's kind of, it didn't meet their safety criteria. So they're saying, hey, if you all want to do this, you go for it, but we're not necessarily comfortable with this.
I mean, the question was asked to the state, ODOT, you know, how do other cities get their access points in locations that are even closer to intersections on state routes? And, you know, one of their engineers did provide a direction for the city to, and the developer to move in, and that would be moving those properties into the jurisdiction of the city.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So I think I see that there's a legal way to get there, but I think from a safety standpoint, I'm still not hearing, and I think a part of my responsibility and our responsibility would come up with some ways to mitigate safety if we were to go down this route, whether it's a right in, right out, or some way, if we already know from the state there's a safety concern just based on their parameters, and there's kind of a common sense concern just knowing that road. But we do know there's other businesses that are on that street and people turn into it to go. So we know it's not just a no entry point road, but I think it would be our responsibility to kind of try to come up with some solutions to mitigate some of the risks. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Law Director Deary.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So in accordance with Ohio Revised Code 709.16 A and D, which is what I would anticipate our petition would be filed under, if the only territory to be annexed is contiguous territory owned by the state, which is what we have here, and the Director of Administrative Services of the state has filed a written consent to the granting of the annexation with the Board of County Commissioners, which we anticipate is what we would have since the state of Ohio is, as far as I understand, in agreement to this. The Board of Commissioners, by resolution, shall grant the annexation. So that means that there's no discretion for them to do otherwise. The annexation shall be complete upon the entry upon the journal of the Board of a resolution granting the annexation. So barring some sort of flaw in the petition, which yes, be it a bit biased, I do not anticipate that there would be a flaw in the petition filed by my office, based upon 709.16D, that the annexation shall be granted by the commissioners in due time.
Mr. Lippian.
Very good. Thank you, Law Director Deary. It took you a lot faster to find that information than probably would have taken the rest of us, so thank you for doing that. So if we approve today the submission of a petition, and we take no action on this construction with this road. Sorry, there's a lot of conversation going on. If we do submit this petition and we are granted the petition, we could still choose to take no further action. Would there be any benefit to having annexed the road absent these sorts of plans being initiated? That's, I guess, an open question for anybody.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, that's probably well, I can definitely say that is a question that's much broader beyond my office as far as what benefit us owning that property is. I can tell you that certainly then it will fall to the city's responsibility to maintain the roadway, plow, things of that nature. Again, that's really up to council and to weigh that as far as other departments to say how much of a pro and con that is. But yes, I mean, that's correct. Moving forward with the annexation does not necessarily mean that the access would have to be also pursued. But there obviously is an obligation that's attached once we as a city would take on the ownership.
Thank you. Engineer McKillop?
Through you, Chair, I do want to mention that, you know, when this project went through Planning Commission, I mean, at that point in time, the departments had opportunities to comment, and Planning Commission or the engineering department at that time could have requested a traffic study be performed. Again, I'm not sure. I know one wasn't performed. I don't know if one was requested and what took place there. I don't attend those meetings, but at that time, I don't know if, you know, these concerns were brought up. Had concerns been brought up at that time, maybe there may have been a different layout that could have been put in place. I don't know. But at this point, with the plats that we're dealing with, you know, whatever we need to do, if it's, like the mayor said, if we have to look at a right in, right out, if we do a study and it determines we need to put in a turn lane, or maybe we just put in a sign there that says no left turn, whatever the case is, we can, you know, the developer will accommodate in order to make sure that this development has access from 113 specifically for safety forces.
Thank you. Mr. Lippian?
Thanks to you, Mr. Chair. Can you help us understand, engineer, besides the increased access for safety services from this project, what the other benefits would be as we consider the benefits against the risks? What the other benefits would be to approving this today?
One of the benefits that this would provide us is an opportunity to extend a sanitary sewer down 113 towards Old West River, as well as possibly connect to the sewer in this new subdivision for properties or businesses within that area.
Mr. Lippian?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. And engineer, could you then take the next link in the chain of consequences and explain to us what the benefit, for the public's benefit, what the benefit to the community would be of that increased sewer, et cetera?
Well, it would be decreased septic systems or package plants, wastewater package plants. That would basically be the most beneficial part of extending sewers into areas that are not currently sewered. But this, with the subdivision at the location it is, and knowing that in the past we've had, it's now called Stanley, Old Nelson Stud wanting to connect to our city system, this may be an avenue for that to take place.
I just want to make sure you're done because there's a couple others that are, okay. Mr. Lippian.
You can take the others before me. I do have a follow-up, but that's okay.
No, if you have a follow-up, we'll stick with the,
No, I think I'm channeling Councilwoman Mitchell when I hear that we'll own the road and then we're probably would have to use issue 6 funds to pave it. You know, it's going to be another street that we own, right? Another street we have to pave and repave and plow. Do we have an understanding of what the cost might be for that and where we would derive that cost from?
Well, since it's a state route, it would fall under the urban paving program that ODOT provides to municipalities within the state. So if that road were to be done, our cost would be 10% of that portion of the property or the road.
okay, thank you, Mr. Lippian. Now, just to be clear, I've got 3 people on deck here. First one will be Mr. Oswald, then Mr. Tolet, and then Mrs. Mitchell. So, Mr. Oswald, you are in the batter's box.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Mr. Snyder may be able to answer this, and I haven't had the time to go over and look at this, but is there a benefit of, like, something we're missing that the developer maybe wants to develop more properties or houses off of this street, or is there nothing that they can do? They're just spending the money for what you said, 765 feet. You know what I mean? I haven't seen the property over there. Chad, is there any more developing on that they can do? That's why they want to do it, not the fact that they want to get it out to 113. Are we missing something here?
Go ahead,
Okay,
Mr.
through you,
Steiner.
Mr. Chair. I think it's just because there's 325 houses and you don't want to have them all accessed through Fowl Road. You have to have a secondary access for that many people to get in and get out of the development.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Tolet.
I have 2 questions. First one is, will it affect our JED agreement at all, Joint Economic Development?
No.
Okay. Next question. Is it, and this is to our law director, is it appropriate, being that this will go to the county commissioners, that Mr. Lippian is reviewing questions on this that could detail into his supervision? Is there a conflict?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do not know the specifics of Mr. Lippian's day job in order to be able to ascertain that. I would expect of Mr. Lippian, as I would of any of you, to make that determination, and if needed, for him to recuse himself, if it was determined that he felt that was in the best interests, as I would of any of you.
Thank you. Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So I knew, Mr. Snyder knew from the moment this development was proposed that it was going to go all the way back to 113. It was going to go that was the plan all along. So for engineering to say that you all didn't know is kind of concerning. And I'm not against the road. I'm not against the road at all. I agree that there probably should be a secondary access. I'm against it coming out to 113 and making that left. If we put a right in, right out only, okay, maybe that'll work. My concern is for the safety. Bottom line, my concern is for the safety. And I think that should be all of our concern, and I think that's the most important issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, engineering did know. I mean, we had the plat. We knew it was going out to 113. And through the planning commission process, we had no issues with that entrance going out to 113. It wasn't until the developer went to get the permit that it ended up being an issue. Part of that, I mean, we thought a secondary access to that subdivision was warranted. Developer is willing to put the road all the way out there to 113, so It made sense.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Lippian.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. As we've continued the conversation on this, it didn't come to my attention really until the law director clearly outlined that the petitioning authority is the Lorain County Commissioners, who, since it was brought up by Councilman Tolet, are not my direct supervisors. My direct supervisor during my day job is actually Robert Duncan, the Director of Lorain County Community Development, and I've had no interaction on this project from my day job. So I guess I would like to ask the law director if she thinks that's a problem or not.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, ultimately, Mr. Lippian, I understand what you're saying. You're not dealing with this directly. I don't know that you may or may not deal with this in the future with your job. I would recommend, obviously, that should this come your way in the future, that you would obviously screen yourself out. And that's really the best that I'm able to offer you at this time. Obviously, as I know that you understand, at the end of the day, your ultimate bosses are, for your day job is Lorain County, and you have to decide for yourself if you can be impartial. And so I just would offer you that. And I'm not saying that in terms of judgment, I'm just stating the reality of that situation. But that being said, you've stated here that you've not had any interactions with this project, and obviously I take that at your word.
Mr. Lippian.
Thanks. Through you, Mr. Chair. And furthermore, by the law director's own admission, they're very, very, very limited on what they can even do. Basically, what I'm understanding from Law Director Deary is it's basically they have to approve it, so they don't have much agency over this anyway. And just so everybody's clear, again, this did not come across my desk. If it did, I think then I would consider it a matter worth reviewing on recusal. But based on the way that the law director framed it, and thank you, ma'am, for that framing, I don't see a conflict in voting on this today.
Thank you, Mr. Lippian. Are there any further questions, comments, concerns? Okay, I will read the committee report. We have considered the matter of annexation of certain state-owned property in Elyria Township on State Route 113. This is an ordinance authorizing the said annexation agreement. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Schneider. There's a motion on the floor.
Mr. Chair, I'll second it just to get it on the floor.
Okay. Seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Call for the question.
Call for the question. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, myself was a nay, Mrs. Mitchell, and I hear another voice. Mr. Oswald. So we have one aye. I'm sorry?
I was an A.
Was there an aye? Through you, Mr. Chair, was there an aye?
I believe there was one aye.
I was one aye.
Okay, just to be clear, this will go to full council as a minority report. Okay, at this time, seeing no further business for community development, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schneider, seconded by Mr. Oswald.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
What was the last one? Just Chad's on, yeah.
Just Chad.
Can't you?
Mr. Mayor, can I make a request of the administration? With that, but can we get the psychedelic lights fixed? Because they drive me crazy. Yes, sir. It is cold in here, but the lights bother me more. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to call finance to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the finance meeting minutes for May 8th, 2023. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Sarah,
Second.
second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion?
Question?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 2. Item number 2, we've considered the matter an inactive delinquent public utility accounts, a resolution authorizing said delinquent accounts to be certified to the Lorraine County Auditor's Office per the attached list. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah,
Second.
second by Mr. Tolet. Ms. Connor?
Through you, Mr. Chair. On the list that was provided that was approved by the Resolution Board on June 2nd, there's 20 accounts for a total of $12,234.03 that we're asked to send over based on approval.
Okay. Again, this is just house cleaning up over and through, but it seems like the list is kind of somewhat reduced a little bit since the last time over and through. Is there any further discussion on what's presented before the committee?
Call for the question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3, we've considered the matter of a contract with Black and Veatch for the Phase 2 of the water transmission line study. In order to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with Black and Veatch for the said program, standard emergency is requested. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Sarah, second by Ms. Davis. Engineer McKillips.
Through you, Chair, this item is requesting authorization to enter into an amendment to our current contract with Black and Veatch for Phase 2 of the water transmission main assessment study. The first phase involved preparation of what was needed in order to get to a point where we can actually do the inspection of the pipes itself. This phase will study the inside of the main, will identify any leaks, weak areas. We'll be repairing any valves, blow-offs, obviously pipes. Once all that is identified, then we'll be able to know what the roadmap looks like moving forward with the age and the condition of our transmission mains, and these are the mains that come from our water plant up in Lorraine, and down to almost the city limits. And these mains do not only supply water to the city of Elyria, but other communities surrounding us. The estimate for Phase 2 is $1.51 million, and it is included in the engineering water professional services budget.
Okay. I have a question as well as the law director. Is this an amendment to this, or is this a brand-new contract?
Amendment.
Is it an amendment? Okay. Law Director Deary?
To you, Mr. Chair, Engineer McKillips, if you could just make sure, and perhaps you've already been in contact with either Attorney Brunig or Attorney Dola, but if you could just make sure that we have a copy of it in our office of what we're amending.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Tolet?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if this is an amendment, but this is already budgeted. Can you put an amendment into a budget that's already been approved? Does that make sense? Does my question make sense?
Through you, Chair, does it make more, I mean, amendment or new agreement, it doesn't really make a difference to us, and I'm sure it doesn't make a difference to the consultant. In either case, the amount for the entire program was included in the budget.
Finance Director Pulaski is...
Through you, Mr. Chair, as long as it's appropriated, which I believe it is, you can amend the contract.
Thank you. It was confusing using the term amendment.
So the only thing that I look at is whether money's appropriated or not. And then the approval by council approving the amendment to the contract.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Law Director?
I have this referral that says advertising award of contract. That's not this.
That is, no.
Okay. I'm gonna get rid of that.
That's the one.
These are not the same. Is this on tonight?
No, it's not.
Okay, so never mind. Now maybe it's my confusion that's not. And now it's remedied. Thank you.
All right, very good. Is there any further discussion?
Call for the question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 4. We've considered a matter of placing a lien on a property for boarding up and securing 264 Windsor Drive, which is the old Windsor School, in the amount of $313. A resolution authorizing said charge to be certified as a lien to the Lorraine County Auditor's Office per the attached. I'll get a motion to get it on the floor. Moved by Ms. Davis, second by Mr. Schneider. I know that Mr. Farkas made this referral. So I guess the question would be and I don't know if Safety Service Director Lundy can inquire about it. This is the school's property, and I would have thought they would have had that boarded up already. So are you familiar or aware of what's being requested here?
I know the board up took place as a result of a police request. That's what I was informed of by Darrell Farkas in his email to me.
Do you know if that request was, I guess, initially sent to the school board to address the situation?
I know we've had numerous conversations with the school board about making sure that the building is properly boarded. But I can't answer the question. Daryl would have to answer that.
Okay. That would be the only concern but obviously there is an issue of it not being. Yeah. I think I would like to remove this from the agenda for tonight, table it, just because I just want to get some clarification on it. I would think that the schools would have been notified to board up their property, and so we're going to be charging them another $313.
Through you, Mr. Chair, has this bill been sent to them? Typically, we issue invoices to property owners before we send liens.
Those bills are processed through the building department.
Okay. I mean, I would suggest, and I would certainly reach out to their attorney and say, look, we have an invoice for you prior to sending the lien. It certainly would, it's certainly not going to hurt for my office to reach out to their attorney rather than, processing this. That would just be a suggestion.
I don't disagree.
Okay, so we'll table this. Item number 5, we consider the matter of placing lien on the property for boarding up and securing 309 East Broad Street in the amount of $270.69. A resolution authorizing the said changes to be certified to a lien to Lorraine County Auditor's Office per the attached. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Davis, second by Mr. Schneider. Is there any further discussion? So this is just a lien on a property that was boarded up. Mr. Safety Service Director Lynn, do you want to?
Yeah, that was police action as well.
I would say that based on the recommendation of the law director and with the previous issuance was we will table this one as well until we get further clarification.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I would just request that the invoice be sent to the property owner or the person responsible on the tax record prior to us submitting it, much in the same way that we do with the utility bills.
Okay. No, it's all right. Thank you for the information. All right. Item number 6. We've considered the matter of waiving building permit fees for the construction projects at Elyria Catholic High School. This is an ordinance authorizing the waiving of said fees of not to exceed $7,500. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Mr. Tolet. This is referred by both Mr. Tolet and Mr. Sarah. Mr. Tolet, will you be speaking on it?
I can start off if that's okay with you, Mr. Sarah.
Fine.
There are several projects going on at Elyria Catholic right now. Their bleachers were deemed unsafe and they are forced to replace the press box and all new bleachers. There was a structural problem with the Coliseum at Elyria Catholic where they had to do reinforcement of the Coliseum, remove all the exterior brickwork. The project is still going in. There's fencing. There's numerous building permits that were required, and I'm asking council to waive $7,500 of any fees that would occur within the city, as we've done with other schools here in town.
Okay. Mr. Sarah, did you want to weigh anything more on that, since this is your referral as well?
Yeah, I mean, I would just repeat what my colleague said, except, we did quite a bit for Elyria High when they were building the new schools, and I just think it would be the right thing to do to our crosstown rival, I guess.
Sure, very good. Law Director Deary?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just in terms of, I guess, the logistics of this, Mr. Tolet and Mr. Sarah, are you anticipating that this would be a reimbursement of fees that have already been paid, or going forward, I guess a true waiver of future fees, or a combination of both?
I would say it would be a combination of both. If we're confident that future fees won't exceed the 7,500.
Okay, so based on that, I guess I would just be looking for some sort of direction, should this move forward, as to how to structure that, how you'd want to do that. If you'd want to say commencing a date certain, I don't know how far back you'd be looking, if you'd be looking at the beginning of this calendar year, or last, I guess, school year, the 2022, 2023 school year, something just along those lines to capture the parameters.
Based upon the conversation we've had, could we include calendar year 2023 expenses incurred? Would that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think obviously that would be the, what the commission, or excuse me, the committee decides, but I think that would work as far as us being able to structure some sort of legislation.
Thank you.
So the motion would be we'll amend the motion to be for the calendar year of 2023. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair and Council.
Does the motion concur with the calendar year of 2023?
Concur.
Does the second?
Concur.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 7, we've considered the matter of transferring funds. An ordinance authorizing the finance director to transfer $45,000 from the general fund to the special traffic administrative magistrate fund. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Davis, second by Mr. Snyder. Finance Director Pulaski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, the Elyria Police Department has started a traffic unit, I guess you would call it, with 2 full-time officers. And I guess during the first 2 weeks of the program, they issued 265 traffic citations, which has obviously increased the volume of court cases at Elyria Municipal Court. So a letter was sent by Judge Bennett, who is the administrative judge for this year, and is requesting that we appropriate $45,000 additional in the Special Traffic Magistrate Fund to hire 1 new part-time magistrate and possibly a staff member. So my recommendation would be to give me authorization to transfer $45,000 from the general fund to the Special Traffic Magistrate Fund, and then the appropriation of that money that is transferred will be addressed in item number 10.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions in regards to what's being proposed submitted by the judge and what's here before us? Mr. Tolet?
Through you, and this is to probably the Mayor and Safety Service Director. It's my understanding that there's been roughly 600 tickets written to this point, and over half of them have been in school zones, which makes, I don't want to say it makes me happy, but the system is working. What the residents wanted. So I think this is a great thing to have happen.
Very good. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Oswald?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not on this committee. But when I first seen the letter, I kind of was annoyed because, of course, I grew up in private enterprise, and when we got a little extra work, we just wore another hat and we got the work done. So it hasn't even been 2 months, and now they need more money, and maybe things will taper off, and then all of a sudden they got an extra person or that person hired, and when things slow down, then what do? Do they get rid of that person? We just had a really good, the beautification program, and they were working their butts off, but they didn't hire a new person yet. Now, she did tell me if this thing keeps up, we may have to do that. But to me, it was just an awful quick, I need money. And that's the part that bothered me. So we're not even looking to see if they can manage and they can pull up their straps and make this thing happen with what they've got. I just don't like the idea that they are coming to the well to get more money right off the bat. It just makes you think. I just don't agree with this for right now. After a while, and things do keep up, then maybe, yeah, they need some extra money. So I just don't agree with it right now. And that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lepian?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not on the Finance Committee, but thank you for recognizing me. Mr. Pileski, having received the letter from the judge, and I don't know if all of council received the letter, because again, I'm not on this committee, but would it be possible to perhaps share a couple salient passages from the letter for his argument as to why, or to summarize that, please, for us?
You would like me to explain the letter?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just to perhaps highlight a few salient passages, I'm sure his letter had reasons in it besides just the increased workload. Perhaps if you can highlight some of his main arguments for why he's asking for it to address Councilman Oswald's concerns.
Well, basically, through you, Mr. Chair, the extra workload, the letter goes on to say, at this point, we're hoping that the increase can be handled by adding another traffic docket on Wednesday. Apparently, they currently have a traffic docket on Thursday, so they want to start one on Wednesday. This will require hiring an additional person, providing extra support staff and security. They go on to say that, therefore, we are requesting the addition of $45,000. The increase has not only occurred on the traffic docket, but also the regular court docket of Judge White and myself. The majority of these traffic citations are minor misdemeanors, but certain speed offenses are misdemeanor 4s, which means this matter must be heard by a judge because there is a possibility of 30 days in jail and the defendant has a right to an attorney. Recently, their docket has had 15 to 20 of these cases in addition to our regular docket of more serious criminal offenses. Most of the M4 tickets involve school zone tickets, so we expect these numbers to drop during the summer months. Judge White and I are available at your convenience to discuss this request in more detail. And this letter was addressed to Council President Vic Stewart.
Mr. Slay, you had your hand up.
Yes, through you. Mr. Pileski addressed it. When you speed through a school zone, it gets elevated to a misdemeanor 4. Misdemeanor 4 must go before a judge. When it goes before a judge, other things get pushed down. And the income generated by the traffic more than offsets the cost of this. Just so for Mr. Oswald, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Lepian?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I did have a question attaching to Mr. Toulette's point about the income from the tickets more than makes up for the expense of the increased staff. Just so the public is clear, do we know what the income from the tickets was? And do we know that we've been enforcing with this traffic unit city ordinance, which means that the lion's share of the money goes back to the city, just to confirm?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that money is collected by Elyria Municipal Court and submitted to my office. Actually, it's not submitted to my office. They have their own bank account. But they do give to me, the city share. And they supply a report, so June's report we have not received yet. So I would have to get with the judges to see if they can separate these cases from all the other cases that they report. And the report probably comes from the clerk's office, clerk of courts. So I would have to work with the judges and the clerk of court to see if they can determine how much revenue this program is actually generating, but I will do that.
Mr. Lippian?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a quick
But
follow-up.
one other item, to understand the setup, you know that they have a lot of special funds in the system. They have the Special Traffic Magistrate Fund, several funds. So these don't all go into the general fund. So I'll try to get a breakdown of that as well. But hopefully I can report to you in July.
Sure, thank you. Through you, Mr. President. Just because a couple conversations I've had with clerk of court staff have led me to believe that these tickets are really being enforced by city ordinance, whereas before they would tend to be enforced through the state of Ohio. So my understanding is, and that's why I wanted to confirm, that these are being enforced through the city ordinance, and therefore the lion's share of the money is, staying here. Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Tolet.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, if they are being charged under our ordinances, we would be receiving most of the money. If they're charged under state code, I believe we receive 45%. So.
Very good. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Chair. I also would like to see a breakdown of how many people mail theirs in. If you just getting the ticket, you have an opportunity to send yours in instead of going into the court. So I would like to see a breakdown of that before they start asking for help.
Through you, Mr. Chair. What I can say is that there are quite a few what they call waivers that have been a result of the traffic unit. But what I also can tell you is that there are quite a few that are either individuals who opt not to waive, which is obviously their right, who come into court to contest their tickets, which obviously have increased the dockets, but even more so, as Mr. Tolet mentioned, quite a few of the violations are of the nature where waiver is not an option, where you have to come to court. And I think that's really has proven just how effective and unfortunately kind of how alarming what a need that the unit has been. For instance, when somebody is speeding, so many miles over the speed limit in a school zone, you get enough of those violations, or they're egregious enough, you don't get that option of mailing in your fine. You have to appear before the court. So I can tell you that since now it's been about a month or a little over, there have been days where there have been over 100 arraignments, just traffic arraignments in a morning, not, on top of the jail arraignments, all the other types of cases that are being sifted through. And again, most of these people are without attorneys, which is, again, their right, but that does certainly, it creates a burden on the system. So, but I certainly appreciate what you're saying. And they certainly can give you those numbers as far as how many waivers and how many cases. But I can tell you that there have, since this has gone into effect, there have been about 60 to 100 traffic arraignments on each traffic day that the magistrates hold in traffic court. So people obviously either exercising their right because they don't want to waive and they think that they have an argument, or people who have to show up. And obviously that doesn't include people who are just thumbing their nose at the system, which there always are some of those as well.
Thank you, Law Director. Any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
One nay. Motion carried. Item number 8, The matter of Skill Up City Initiative, this is just for discussion only. There will be no action taking place tonight. So,
I'll be
I'll-
starting. if that's
Safety
okay with you,
Service
Mr.
Safety
President.
Service Director Lundy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, Chairman. Well, for all of us in this chamber tonight, there's one very important question that guides us each and every day. That question is, how can we do better to serve the citizens of Elyria? And that question is followed by the question, what will it take to get it done? Almost all the time, we seem to focus more on the process. Other times, we seem to focus a lot on the equipment that's needed. But the bottom line is we can't accomplish much at all without the work of our dedicated employees. Tonight, we want to focus on a new initiative, Skill Up Our City. This is an AFSCME-driven program. This program, which you will learn about tonight, incentivizes our employees to obtain new skills and secure important licenses and certificates. It's important that our employees know that there is a career pathway, a path forward. We want our employees to learn and to grow. It's about having a career, not a job. As the city's new safety service director, I feel that I bring a new set of eyes to how the city operates. As a former elected official, I know how nervous you might feel about making changes that maybe have been in place for a long time. I've been there. So why are we coming to you with this initiative right now? Well, it's because tomorrow can't wait. Delivering city services is very challenging, as we all know. Our citizens don't want to hear that, well, you'll need to wait until tomorrow because I'm down some critical city workers, such as city workers who hold a commercial driver's license, certificates, or a skilled license. Tomorrow can't wait because we all know the work world has changed, and boy, has it ever changed. Now we must compete not only with the corporate world, but with other cities who are transitioning to a competitive workforce model. This change is only made possible through your support. Recruitment, retention, a career path to build upon. AFSCME union leadership knows the challenges that we are facing and wants to join with all of us to find the best roadmap for career growth for our employees. Here tonight, we've invited to join to speak with you Matt Beal, our local president, and regional AFSCME representative Matt Hetrick, who can share with you their perspective. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come forward, please. And while they're coming forward, I would just respectfully ask that we have the opportunity, Mr. President and Chairman, to present the plan to you tonight first and then actually open it up for questions.
Okay, very good. Welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good. I just wanted to speak on the behalf of the union members as we've been working with the city to try to make ourselves stronger and better as whole. I've seen us lose workers because of the wage gaps that we've accrued in these years, and it's been going on for a long time. Being able to collaborate with the mayor and his administration, I feel like we've made strides to try to better ourselves and at least make progress in that direction. We do need to change with the times. We need to be competitive with our wages. We've had instances at water pumping where we've became short-staffed because of people leaving and not wanting to stay. We've also struggled with getting people to bid on jobs and fill positions that we've lost. I think us working together with this program should hopefully solidify being able to want to retain and keep people in those positions and also make it easier to, when positions open up, have them filled and not have voids and time that we're not getting stuff done. Because if we don't have these people here, the city's not running smooth. I don't want to see us lose people to other municipalities. I've been in this city my whole life, so I feel if we can keep people here, they want to grow here and they want to build something that they're actually a part of. And I believe that the plan that we have with the mayor and the collaboration that we have is the best bet for us moving forward with the city.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Beal at this time, just regards to his comments? Mr. Tolet?
Could we wait until the next speaker speaks also?
Go ahead. Please state your name and address for the record.
Matt Hetrick.
Name and address for the record.
Say it again.
Your name and address for the record.
Address, I live in North Olmsted. I am not a resident of the city of Elyria. Is that still relevant?
Yes, you
Okay.
still need to have your address for the record.
Absolutely. 4154 Shelley Drive,
Thank you.
North Olmsted, Ohio. I really appreciate you all allowing us to talk a little bit about Skill Up Ohio today, Skill Up Elyria. You know, having the opportunity to negotiate contracts for workers who do a lot of the work that the folks I represent here in the city of Elyria do, I get to see the ever-changing market on the fly. And one thing that I've noticed recently, ever since the pandemic, is that a lot of employers have had a tough time getting talent to come to their city at the wage rates that have, you know, been established over a very long period of time. And what they're doing is they're actually raising the floor for new hires, right? And they are providing incentives for those who have water certifications, as well as CDLs and other certifications that have provided the city an opportunity to do work in more different ways, more versatile ways, right? And the last thing that you want to do is you don't want to put yourself into a position to lose talent to surrounding communities who are offering that, right? And as a representative who also represents the city of Amherst, they recently did a wage and salary study. And it kind of jives with an electrical issue, which we had here in the city of Elyria, where there was a position that opened up, and there was a wage that was provided with that, and it created a grievance that made us all take a look at, you know, what our established tradesmen were making here in Elyria, right? And so out in Amherst, recently they did a wage and salary study for the electrical worker, for the apprentice, for the 12-month journeyman, and the full journeyman. And the wage rates now are just at such an accelerated rate that the second another one of those positions open up, I would not be surprised to see more talent, you know, move away. And then for the city to be able to then, in turn, not only lose, you know, a well-qualified employee, but to then have to replace them, that's a whole job in and of itself, to replace talent, right? And so I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on this outside of regular contract negotiations, right? Where, you know, you have a city that provides services to a very, very diverse and large group of people. Elyria is the second largest city that I negotiate contracts for. The other one's the city of Cleveland. And I'm very pleased to work with the city on this, to work with the mayor, the safety service director, as well as the local on trying to find ways to retain talent before you lose it, especially not only just talent, but taxpayers, citizens, people whose kids go to your schools, and people who live in your neighborhoods. I think it's very important, and I hope that if we can't change it today, if we can't change it this month, we at least look to try to find ways to change it as soon as possible. And so I hope that you all take a good look at what we're trying to propose here, and at least, you know, if it doesn't get solved today, we start a discussion and we try to solve a problem here moving into the future. Thank you.
Council Press. Can we finish our
Mayor
presentation?
Whitfield?
So, first off, thank you, Council Pres, and thank you, President Bill and Matt, for being here. There's a couple things I wanted to share and build off of what you've already heard in terms of the importance of us acting on something now. And I think, you know, when I talk about this journey that we're on, this is, to me, one phase of a long journey we need to go on in terms of evaluating our pay rate, evaluating our organizational structure, evaluating how we can be more efficient, how we can reward those who are seeking to grow in our city. And today is one of those steps towards that direction. I am very mindful we do not want to race to the top when it comes to wages. We can't compete with the private sector, but we have to be competitive to be able to retain our workforce. since we've been in office, one of our major focuses has been investing in our workforce. We've done trainings, workshops on various topics, leadership, management, diversity, inclusion, key performance indicators. And we think investing in your people is the greatest investment you can make. And we think it's important to have these kind of career pathways, because one thing that happens within the city, you can have somebody working very diligently, doing a really good job in a department, but they want to make more money, so they leave that whole sector to go and bid into another job in another department because there wasn't a clear pathway within that department. So what we're going to be embarking on with you all over the next several meetings is really unpacking that. And I wanted our HR director to kind of speak to the process that we've been doing to get some of this data. In other cities, as you've heard, they spend, tens of thousands of dollars and hire consultants to do this work, but we really thought we could try to do this amongst ourselves, and I think we've done a great job thus far. And I'd love for Director Youssefi to get a chance to kind of talk about the process that we embarked upon.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Chairman. The process that we used to do this was, at the very beginning, each of the department heads created a document that developed a narrative that explained how individual departments can create career ladders. I'm going to give you an example. In our Parks Department, we have laborers, service workers, skilled maintenance. It's a ladder, but it's not clear how do you get from one to the next. So we have developed criteria around these different jobs to be able to figure out how to move them to the next level. So what we do have is, after each department has identified the positions which they believe are underpaid, I went back and I did a market research, and I looked at our comparables. Our comparables are Lakewood, Parma, which are very similar to us, similarly situated, and Lorraine, because I wanted to have a Lorraine County also in there. So I met with each manager individually, and we created a current and a proposed organizational chart for the whole city. And then I did an evaluation of each proposal and created a summary. Today I met with finance director and assistant finance director, and we'll be working together to figure out the cost of all of these different programs, all that we are putting forward. Really, the bread and butter of this is creating careers and career ladders for our employees, looking at underfunded, underpaid positions, and how are we losing people, what's happening with that, and how do we try to bring more people in those particular positions. And also to be able to utilize our employees to develop skills, to get licensing, to get certificates, which then they can be rewarded for, but also as a reward for us. The more skilled our workforce, the better off we're going to be. I have individual department narratives. I don't want to go through each of them to bore you, but maybe we can go to some questions now.
Yeah, or the last thing I'll share through you, Chairman, is we're passing around the 3 items that today we're asking you to act upon. They are 3 incentive increases that are very modest increases. And again, it demonstrates our value of our employees, our willingness to invest in our employees, and rewarding them for getting additional skills. The first one is around an electrician incentive, where we're asking for a bump of increase in pay for those who have that electrician certification, which we know is highly sought after right now. We also have a pathway for those folks to get state certified, but we know those electricians could easily get a private sector job and get paid a lot more, so retention of them. The next is a CDL incentive, which increases the incentive for having your CDL license within the city. There was some negotiation. Their initial request was, you'll see, was higher than what we felt comfortable with at the time. So we scaled that back, and we have, again, a modest sort of request of you tonight. We think that over time we could revisit this, but we felt like this was a fair middle ground that we landed in terms of the CDL A and B incentive. And the last piece is the water license incentive. And so again, there's an increase in rewarding our employees for studying hard, taking these tests, getting those skills, which makes us a more effective city, makes them more valuable. And I often think about the adage around the CEO and the CEO, and the CFO. The CFO says, well, what if we invest in our people and they leave? And the CEO says, well, what if we don't invest in them and they stay? And this is really about making sure the people here, we're investing resources in them so they can do a great job for the city of Elyria residents. You can see a total breakdown. It doesn't even go over $200K. I believe we have the funds available in each of the funds. So I would ask that council and this committee consider acting on these 3 items tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, with that respect, Mayor, we're not going to take any action tonight on this because we just got this tonight. And I guess my first question would be is, when did this skill up our city come into play? Like, when was this conversations start to happen?
Through you, Chairman, I would say we've started these conversations since I've been in office. You know, we've looked at this challenge we have with having 19 departments as a whole, some of the inefficiencies that exist, some of the jumping that we've seen employees do, and the grievance that we had around the electrician, who again was seeking a higher wage, but we didn't really have a middle step. So the jump was so astronomical that we said, hey, we need to really look at this comprehensively. And we had other departments say, hey, we're struggling to hire folks, we're struggling to retain folks. And so again, I think this is step one, and I hope you know that, you know, for us making decisions, and there's going to be many more sort of decisions that come before you, but we felt like these ones were low-hanging fruit. I understand you're just looking at this now, but these, I know we just spent about an hour on another topic, so we could give you time to digest these. These are very modest numbers. There's a $17,000 increase of cost for the electrician increase. There's a $86,000 CDL incentive cost, and there's a $66,000 water license incentive cost, and each of these things are paid from different funds, the water fund, the sanitation fund, and the general fund. So I would love to give you time to kind of digest this and ask questions, and with hopes that you'd act on it. Thank you.
Another question would be then, I guess, right off the onset would be, since this has been going on as part of maybe your plan, why was this not maybe kind of brought into the whole contract issues with AFSCME about building that up to these, you know, opportunities for our workers and having those negotiations then, instead of here we are after, and I think we're in year 2 maybe of our contract?
Yes, year 2.
So it's like, why was it not incorporated into those conversations initially?
So 2 things, and I think the union representative is going to speak to this as well. I think one aspect is we did look at these during those union negotiations when we had those, and the world has changed since then. And wages, it's hard to be competitive now. And a part of this is looking at how do we ensure that we can retain employees. But I can let Matt speak from a union perspective of why we, of how we did before and why we're bringing it up now.
So I'll be very honest. We were looking at the skilled maintenance position and the service worker position as needing some sort of equity increase based on the market. And as discussions kind of continued, our goal was to do as well as we could during the pandemic, right? We negotiated our contract during the pandemic. We appreciate the city agreeing to the wage increases that they did, as well as the signing bonuses. It was a great contract, but when we came out of the pandemic, the volatile work situation that has been created as a result of keeping talent, people becoming a little bit more, you know, confident in taking their talents elsewhere, right? You don't see people really worried about a long-term career as much as they are finding their worth, right? And the more I negotiate contracts and the more I meet employees, you see that even though we did so well in the last contract with, you know, a 3%, a 3%, a 3%, they were still 3% on what I deemed at the time, prior to those, a rate that was below market in very many ways, right? And not just looking at Lakewood, not just looking at Parma, looking at the entire, every adjacent community, right? Every single one, as well as ones that move out further. And so to be able to start a conversation based off of certified electricians, it's the best place you want to be. These are the most talented people, right? They have gone to school, they have done their apprentice work for 5-8 years, right? They are going to do that job the rest of their lives, right? You don't put that type of work in, you don't get that type of education and just drop it, right? So they're going to keep looking for jobs where they can utilize that certification. And if there is a place, a roadblock, I've seen it. They're gonna move on, right? And you know, just like the mayor had said, these are modest increases, and I don't believe even after all of these take place, he just said it's not a race to the top. These are still not near the top, and I would do whatever I could to show you the research that I do. I do this for a living. I check my market and I do my negotiations based on where the general fund is and where the talent is and how many people are in my local. And the electrical situation is probably how this started, right? That wasn't a reality back when we had started our contract negotiations. There wasn't a bid out for this position. There was no job created. So that's why the discussion didn't take place until really, until after that grievance had been filed. And I think that grievance was filed back in maybe December of this previous year, or maybe November. And so we've kind of been, this conversation has gotten more, there's more framework now than there ever's been, right? There was, this was not a real thing 6 months ago. So this is why you're hearing it now and not then.
Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. From my personal standpoint, I don't speak to other council members. Just so you know, when someone's at the podium in this corner seat, sometimes it's hard as heck to hear with these dividers. That's why I stood up. I apologize. I turned 60 this week and I can't hear as good. I apologize. Couple questions I have that I don't know. From a union perspective, would we be reopening the contract mid-contract by doing this? Because I don't know that.
No.
Okay. All right. That's question number one. Right now, we are in one of the highest inflationary times in the last 30 years, but unemployment just started escalating again, going back up. Is it prudent for us not to, we're not going to take a vote tonight. I'm not going to take a vote tonight. I need to study this and think about the ramifications of this 3 and 5 years. We owe that to the taxpayers and to your union. We owe that to you because we want you to be around as long as we possibly can. But does the labor, in your estimation, does the labor market right now, is that what's driving this? And is there a harder push right now because the pendulum has swung with unemployment? Is that, I'm not asking that in a negative way, but if you could answer that.
What I can speak to is, let's just take the class 1, 2, and 3 water license, for example. The EPA has been pushing for folks who work in distribution plants, collections plants, to be more certified, right? And there was a time where finding folks, you have to work in plants to get a class 1. You have to work in plants to get a class 2. It's not something that you can earn before you become a water worker, right? And as the city hit a wall in hiring for these positions, right? You're not going to find people from the outside. You have to find somebody who's willing to get an education and come in to work in your plants. And so once we started seeing these letters coming through, it's my job to capture that, right? And so out in the city of North Royalton, we established, just like we have right here, a class 1, 2, and 3 incentive for folks who obtain these, right? And what that allows your operation to do is to thrive and be more flexible. And so all I can say is wouldn't you want to keep up with that? You get a more diverse group of employees, you get people who have the ability to do more and are protected by their certifications. They know a lot more about those distribution plants and those collections plants.
Here's where I'm really confused. Would the CDL certification be done internally or through an outside source?
I can answer that one. Oh, yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman. So as you probably know, there's a lot of changes happening in the CDL space, and from my very limited understanding, we are blessed that here in the city, we have people who can actually be instructors to do CDL training. If we did not have those instructors, people would have to go to a school like the Great Lakes School and pay $6,000 to get certified. Well, we're fortunate we have that talent in-house, which again speaks to the need to do things like this so we can incentivize those folks to stay so that we can train people in-house. So the short answer is yes, we would train them in-house. The long answer is we're blessed to have folks that can do it, and we need to make sure we keep them.
I'm going to turn it eventually over to Auditor, Finance Director Pulaski, but Ms. Davis, go ahead. Ms. Davis, did you have a question? Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. So I see you have a number down here for employees that may qualify for this training in the CDL incentive. How many employees in the electrician and the water license incentive that we are talking about?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, so there's 4 electricians that would be impacted by this. There is, 27 folks with their CDL A currently, 46 people with their CDL B, and then there is 14 employees with their Class 1 water license, 8 employees with their Class 2 water license, and 4 employees with their Class 3 water license.
And through, thank you. And through you, Chair, truly I feel like that when we involve ourselves with the union, it's like we're messing with the contract to go forward with something like this. And personally, I think we need to talk to somebody else on our protection, our attorneys, because when we're going through they have a contract. Now y'all want us to break the contract, and for this, it's a different way to do this than just going through I think the way you're trying to do it. So I think we need to look at this, because if I was in another department and I see this going on and you approve this with ASME, then I'm coming after you. I'm coming after you. Yep. And I can do that. So we have to be very careful about when we talk about the union, when we moving around and getting involved like this. We need to have somebody else.
Can I reply to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So a couple things. One, we did consult with our labor legal counsel for this initiative, for one. For two, this isn't breaking of the contract. Since I've been here, we've signed a number of MOUs with AFSCME as in the middle of contracts when things happen that we need to adapt to. The one thing I will share, because I shared that concern as well in terms of how does this impact future negotiations. I knew this wasn't opening up this one, but when we get to the future negotiating, how does a decision right now impact it? And a part of the MOU we would sign would factor in that this will be considered in our next union negotiation, as certain things would be off the table in those negotiations based on the actions we make now.
So another question that's just come up, and I'm going to then go to the finance director. So when you're an employee of the water department or any of these other departments, is it not a requirement to have a CDL?
For the water department?
Or any department?
Several departments do require CDLs, yes. Like streets department requires CDLs, CMG for mechanics have to have CDLs, People at wastewater have to have CDLs. All of the sanitation drivers have to have CDLs. There's quite a few.
Okay, and are we following that protocol? I mean, are people?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. Finance Director Plesky, based on this information that was handed out to us here tonight, can you, I don't know how much time you've had to digest it with what's being brought before us.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I actually was approached today at 3 o'clock with this plan and asked to put together some numbers, but excuse me, I was busy with the internal auditors, the independent auditors, trying to get the annual report finished for 2023 or 2022 by the end of this week. So I did not have a chance to put together any numbers. I need to look at each individual budgets, especially the sanitation fund, to see if there's money in there to change this during this year. Moving forward, you know, keep in mind that a lot of the CDL drivers are in enterprise funds, which is water, sewer, and sanitation. And that's all driven by user fees of the system, water fees, sanitation fees, sewer fees. So anytime you increase the expenses, it will have to factor into, you know, possible rate increases. So,
Mr. Tolet. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Plesky, I have a request. Could you do for this committee at your convenience before our next finance meeting, a 3, a 5, and a 10-year expenditure for us to look at so that we know what this is going to cost us 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, based on a 3% average union growth rate contract.
so just for these positions that we're talking about tonight?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, can I chime in on this part of the discussion? So I started smiling ear to ear when you started talking about projecting 3 to 5 years, because I truly believe what we need to have as a city is a 3-year financial model and projection for our city. We can't keep managing the city year to year. We just, in the past, since I've been in office, we've passed issue 6, we've passed the renewal levy, so we know for the next 3 years, barring no major pandemic happens again, we can kind of see where the trends are and where we're at, and then we can start to also make these sort of, you know, decisions around what percentage when we're negotiating and what we can afford in terms of capital, et cetera. So I know the finance department has a lot on their plate, and I'm going to be talking with the director to see about if it makes sense to try to put that on them or if we need to find some outside help to kind of help us put that together. But I truly believe that's something we need to do as a city, start to look at. We can't go too far out because, you know, we have renewal issues, but with the recent passage of the renewal levy, we know, barring no crazy catastrophe, what the next 3 years financially our revenue should be. We should be taking that and then looking at, all right, what sort of expenditures can we make? Again, we have the largest carryover we've had in 20 years in terms of cash balance. We have an opportunity to do something significant, meaningful, and great. And I think this is going to be one of the easiest decisions we make along this journey as we're going down this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. The mayor mentioned that they had spoken with our labor attorney. I would love to have her here to hear her perspective on this. I support the union. I think all of our employees are great, but to hand us a piece of paper tonight and say, here, vote on this, that's unreasonable. Let me finish, please, sir. We have not had time to digest this. Ms. Yousefi said that they did a rate study. I want to see that. I want to know, I want to follow up with what Mrs. Davis said, that what about the other departments? What about the Me Too? Are we opening ourselves up to Me Too with the different unions and stuff? Let me finish, please. Yeah. I want to know what happens to 165. Are they included in this? I want to know all of that before I make a vote. I want to be informed and make an informed, intelligent decision. So I think to ask us to vote on this is unreasonable at this time. Let us get more information. We're not saying we don't support it, but we need to have more information. And another thing, so you're gonna start, so do they not, so does the union not get incentives now? And if so, how much of an incentives do you all get?
I believe that the incentives are in one of the rows here, what they currently are.
Yes, please.
15 cents and 40 cents for CDLs B and A. Class water, I believe, is 50 for a 1, 75 for a 2, and $1 for a 3. $1.25. 50 cents for a 1, Class 1 water. Yep, 75 for a 2, and $1 for the 3. And this is, you asked about negotiations. Our asks for that were higher, right? I was using a model from Lakewood. You can take a look at their current contract. They are a little bit higher than that. The amount of education and training and testing that goes into getting a Class 3 water, even a Class 2, is substantial, right? And these are folks taking chances on themselves. Some people will take that test 3, 4, 5 times and not be reimbursed for any of that because the contract doesn't dignify failures with reimbursement. But, you know, the higher that number goes, the more people, the more talent goes after it. Now, to answer your question, look, I was at a membership meeting a month ago after the passage of the renewal, which AFSCME supported greatly, and we're happy that passed as well as it did. Happy for the city of Elyria and the folks I represent, but I got to feel when there was a situation and I was able to hear from department to department. There was the most people that I've seen at a membership meeting of a local that I've represented, and I represent Local 100. I go to all their meetings. We don't get a quorum, right? There were 70 people out of a 165-person local, give or take, and the amount of energy in the room. And for us to come in there, everybody with a different agenda, and walk out of there with an attitude for how do we change this, it was great to see, and that's why you're seeing this today, right?
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may, we all know that money's great. We all work for money. We all get up every day and go to work because of the money. But it's more than money. It is how you are treated as an employee. It's how management makes you feel that you're valued, that your opinion matters. So it's not always the money. People leave because their manager's a butthead. Let's be honest.
True.
People leave because they don't like the direction the company is going. So it's not always about money. So I just want to be clear on that, you know, people leave because they just can't take it anymore. Thank you.
Mayor Whitfield?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. So a couple things that I want to speak to that Councilwoman Mitchell mentioned. One is in terms of why we presented this tonight. When we embarked on this journey and looking at the work that we're going to have to do, I'll share this again. This is probably the easiest decision you'll have to make when we start to unpack all, because as you mentioned, and as he just mentioned, there's this energy around period, you know, around how do we retain, recruit employees, and the wages have just changed globally. So we have to be competitive. So there's a broader conversation. There's going to be a lot more decisions that we have to make. We felt like tonight this was a modest increase. This is reasonable. It's easy to understand. You know, I'll put these numbers together. I'll put this together. It's pretty easy to understand, and it's simple numbers. And I also think about, you know, when we look at the bottom line number, the total request is around $170,000. And, you know, we've made other decisions in here with less information that was a lot more expensive than $170,000. And I think we know where this is going. We know the people that it's investing in. So I don't think needed to table these three decisions, but trust me, Councilwoman Mitchell, we're gonna have to have a lot of discussions, because you're right, 165 we gotta talk about, you know, these 19 departments, we gotta talk about the skilled maintenance. This, again, that's why we felt comfortable with this, and we're just like, yo, there's a lot more that we're gonna have to do, down this journey, so, thank you.
Mr. Tolet. To you, Mr. Chair. Mayor, I disagree. It's 170 this year. It's 170 plus 3+% next year. And then that compounds every year, year after year, which is why I would love to see a 3, 5-year, and 10-year projection, because just with these positions, we're looking at millions and millions of dollars over the next 10 years. So I'd ask us to, having 15 or 20 minutes to digest this and think of the correct questions even, is it too much to ask?
Yep. Through you, Chairman, thank you for that, Councilman. And I could understand that totally. I could totally understand that position. I do think one of the, because again, you all are bringing up things that we talked about in these negotiations of just like, what does this mean long term? That was why we felt like it was important that it was a part of an MOU, and that we thought that the dollar amount needed to be something that we could stomach for 3 years, because once, you know, or 4 years, we said we needed to be able to see that we had the money for 4 years to follow through on this plan. And when that 4-year mark happens, if the world has changed, then these numbers will have to change. And I think there's an understanding that it may be that today, but if the world changes, then these numbers may not be as high as they are right now. But while we're in this current moment, in this market, with the information we have now and the resources we have, we believe that this is reasonable, but we understand if the committee doesn't want to move forward today, I just want to caution you all that, you know, when we come back, there's a lot more that we have to bring to you all. This was just kind of a first step.
Ms. Davis and then Mr. Lippian.
But through you, Chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Pileski, so this water license, is this going to come with the increase of our citizens back to pay for this? We already getting so many complaints about their water bill for one person, $100 a month. So where is this money? Is it going to come off the back of the water company?
Well,
the water department?
through you, Mr. Chair, the increases to the employees that work within the water fund, which would be water pumping, water distribution, public utilities, they are paid from the user fees of the system, which is their water bill. Now, the water fund is in good shape currently. The sewer fund, of course, we all know what's happening with that, with all the mandated EPA projects, which are unfunded by the EPA. So we're taking out loans for all the sewer projects. And we all know the condition of the sanitation fund, which I will be bringing something to you with regards to reimbursements that the sanitation fund currently makes to the water fund and the general fund based on an ordinance that was passed back in the 1980s, I believe, but we have to revisit some things that are happening with the sanitation fund. But yeah, to answer your question, those increases would come from the water fund. Any employees that get an increase in the sanitation, you know, the garbage pickup, that would come from the sanitation fund, and anybody that works at the sewer plant that would get an increase would come from the sewer fund.
Davis? Or
It did answer my question.
Did it answer your question?
Yes, it did answer my question, but I just want you to know that residents don't see all the breakdown like that. They see their water bill. Mm-hmm. So if any increase is my water bill that's been increased, and so they're not going to be happy. Thank you.
Mr. Lippian and then Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, a quick preliminary question. I might have two, but I guess a point of departure first is, would this increase also apply to those in our maintenance department?
I'm sorry, which increase do you mean?
The increase that's under discussion right now?
For the CDLs and for anyone who has a CDL, so they're throughout the whole city.
Okay.
All the water licenses are just within the water. departments, and the electricians are only in two departments, communications and the wastewater plant.
Okay, so maintenance wouldn't be under this?
No, like park maintenance or no.
Yeah. Well, I know I heard the word comprehensive used. I would think that it's important for us to consider multiple city departments. You know, I went and I visited a lot of city officials, and I heard some similar grievances used informally, colloquially, not a formal grievance, but grievances from employees that a lot of their shops were top-heavy in terms of age, and that they wanted to bring up the younger generation to try and train and mentor, but they weren't sure how to get them and then retain them because they were leaving for other places. And I do think it's important to think about this because, I'm a younger guy. I work a lot with Gen Z. Gen Z is not my generation. I'm Gen Y. But one of the things that I and multiple people in studies have noticed about Gen Z is when 4:30 hits, they're out. They don't want to do overtime. They don't, they don't want to stick around. They're out. And they do really care about the money. I know to a lot of our ears that sounds counterintuitive, but as far as Gen Z is concerned, they really look at that dollar. So we have to think about attracting that next generation because that's being proactive and looking to the future of the city, which is what we really want to foster. And I just think it's important for us to think about those generational considerations as we proceed down these conversations.
Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I think it's important to remember what Mr. Pileski said about the sanitation fund. We all know that it's in trouble. We know that. We just purchased three new sanitation trucks using ARPA funds, which the mayor didn't want us to do. You wanted us to wait and not get those trucks. But we felt it was important to get those trucks using ARPA funds so that we could get them now and save some money. So to say that let's just give these raises now, we've got to consider the future. I agree with everybody, we need to do a comprehensive plan and look at where these raises are going to take us in 3 and 5 years. Thank you.
If you don't mind me responding. First, I want to talk about what Councilman Lippian mentioned in terms of a part of this is also around succession planning. So when you look at some of our departments, there's not a bench that's ready to take the helm when someone retires. And we have a number of retirements coming up. So a part of this whole initiative is to start to prepare that bench to take the baton when folks like Jay Hordell retires, who knows all this stuff in his head, but he doesn't have a skilled maintenance necessarily learning underneath him as a protege. So this initiative, again, we're going to be bringing stuff to you, is to help address some of the succession planning that we need to do as a city. In regards to the sanitation piece, I think I was very clear, similar to what I'm stating here, in terms of having a plan. And what I didn't hear was a plan. I didn't even hear a commitment to continue with sanitation services. So a part of my piece was, how can you be spending millions of dollars on equipment when you haven't made a commitment to the people? And that's why I invited the sanitation folks to come here to get a commitment. I don't know if they ever heard that commitment, but the purpose was to get a commitment from you all that you would never outsource our sanitation department. And I'm not sure they ever got that commitment. So that was where the pushback was how could we be buying trucks when there's not the formal commitment to the service? Thank you.
Okay. With that being said, I know this is there more to this presentation than, okay. So what I would say is that, we're going to put this in pending items. We are not going to act upon what's been presented here tonight. And Mr. Pileski will, look into these numbers as well, because I don't think he's really had a chance to look into them. He's the finance director, and he should have those numbers to us with an update of what this information is and based on the projection that's going to happen here in the next few years. So we'll put this in pending items and gather the information, and then when we're ready to kind of revisit it for more discussion, we'll put it on the agenda. So thank you for your time. We appreciate everyone coming up and sharing their information with us, and there's going to be more conversation. Thank you very much. We've considered the matter of the 2024 tax budget, an ordinance authorizing the finance director to establish the tax budget for the year 2024. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Sarah, second by Ms. Davis. Finance Director Pulaski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What you have before you then is the 2024 tax budget. As you should all know by now, that this is a document required by the Ohio Revised Code, and once completed and approved by council, it gets submitted to the Lorraine County Budget Commission, and this becomes our starting point for our 2024 Certificate of Estimated Resources, which governs how much money we can spend by fund type. So as we go through this, these are all divided in by fund type. So we have the general fund, special revenue funds, which is our largest category. There's probably more than 50 special revenue funds on the books now. We have the one tax increment financing fund, which is the Chestnut Commons TIF fund. We have the two debt service funds, any capital projects, and most of these are the Ohio Public Works Commission issue one projects that we get funding, usually 89% funding from the state and 11% city share. And then we have the enterprise funds, which is your business type activity funds. These are the funds that are designed to be self-supporting. They're driven by user fees of the system, as I mentioned earlier. So this would be water, special parks and rec, sanitation, wastewater, and storm sewer funds. Then we have two internal service funds. That would be the Employees Health Insurance Fund and the Workers' Compensation Fund. And we have a few of our what we call custodial funds, which are basically money held for another entity, and money comes in that goes out. So the document begins with an estimated cash balance at January 1, 2024. So basically, I have to look at each individual fund within these fund types and try to determine what our ending cash will be at December 31, 2023. And then the second column is your estimated real estate taxes. This number will change once the county determines how much our share will be of the real estate taxes next year. Estimated local government allocation, which only goes in the general fund, and this also will be calculated by the county, and that number may change as well. And other sources, which is every other source of revenue, including income tax revenues. And then you come up with a total available to spend or appropriate, and then I come up with an estimated expenditures for 2024, and then the balance at December 31, 2024. So this document will be amended at the end of the year to replace the estimated beginning cash with actual cash numbers. And the other sources will be amended as needed. So as you all know, over the years, I've taken a pretty conservative approach to estimated revenues. And then as revenues typically come in over estimates, then I will amend the budget with the Lorraine County Budget Commission to increase the revenue amount. And then once the appropriation is passed, that number is also replaces the estimated expenditures. So the first number that will go in there will be the temporary appropriation. And then later on in the year, by the end of March, will be the permanent appropriation. And that all gets applied to the Lorraine County Budget Commission. And so this document is amended throughout the course of the year, but this is the first start of it. So upon your approval, it'll be filed with the Lorraine County Budget Commission.
Very well explained, Mr. Pulaski. Is there any questions in regards to that? Ted, do you need this to be an emergency?
Yes, because it is due to Lorraine County Budget Commission by mid-July.
Okay. Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chair, not a question, but a comment. We are so fortunate to have you and Mr. Farrell. It's just, we're fortunate, all of us.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Does the motion concur, is there any more further discussion? Does the motion concur that this is an emergency?
Concur.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 10, we've considered the matter of amendment to the 2023 permanent appropriations to an ordinance authorizing amendment of ordinance number 2023-34, permanent appropriation changes per the attached. Finance Director Pileski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as we spoke earlier, the only change that I have tonight is in the Special Traffic Magistrate Fund, and that's appropriating the $45,000 that we're transferring in from the general fund. So I'm going to put $37,399 of that in salary and wages and $7,601 in benefits and pension.
Very good. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. There's nothing more to come before this committee. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any further discussion?
Question?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. Make sure you sign all the committee reports for finance. Appreciate it.